we as humans are naturally selfish. I was there when the space shuttle actually blew up, and that was a sad day. You walk in the door, from now on you can't say it doesn't mean that you're evil or that you're reckless.
Michael J. Schooler, and bought his first shotgun with money he earned as a paperboy at age 12.
Being nice and listening.
His leadership style will empower you.
Yeah, no, we start young in the Wild West, man.
Welcome to Are You Like Me, the podcast where we dive into the lives of extraordinary individuals and discover what makes them unique. I'm your host, Patrick, and today I'm joined by Michael J. Schooler, a true Renaissance man with an incredible range of interests and accomplishments. From his illustrious career to his love for many things and everything in between, we are in for a captivating conversations. It took a while to organize it, and we know that. I appreciate having you, and I would love to start by learning more about your professional journey. I went through your bio, and I'll share with our listeners as well. You mentioned you used to help your mother to do the dishes, and it was always looking for faster ways to sort and store the silverware. I mean, it's a moment where I would like to understand how things unfolded to you. And my question is, how did you start it? Is it because you hated this job of a silverware?
No, so it's just really interesting because I've ended up in a career, on a career path that's taken me really to be able to accomplish and do things that I didn't realize I really had inside me until later on in life. But when I was young, I had this natural tendency to want to try to look for better ways to do things. And I can remember specifically helping my mother with dishes in the evening and looking, the silverware, and everybody, I think, pretty much in the world has those silverware kind of container things where it has a place for the forks and the knives and the spoons. And I was always looking for a way to, like, how to get those in there faster, or what, a more efficient way to organize and put them in there. And this is when I was just little, like whatever, 8, 9 years old. And I had no idea that there was a future for me in that very thing. The very thing that I kind of had a natural tendency to want to work with, or to do. And I just really fell into my profession, honestly. Oh, stand by! I got to knock at the door.
Tornado.
Yeah, they just sent out a tornado warning here in Mississippi. I didn't realize that Mississippi had that kind of stuff, but apparently they do. It's the first time I've been involved with a tornado warning.
All right. What did you do in that case?
Well, so as soon as it hit here, everybody that I'm working with hurried and looked at their phones, and it came across everybody's phone. And they checked the path of the tornado to see where it might potentially be. And it was really kind of north of us. So everybody said, "Oh, okay, no problem." And we just went back to work. And we haven't had anything happen, but it's been raining.
Oh.
Raining like crazy. Yeah.
So here in UK, we had for past 3 days yellow warning about strong winds, and it's like really strong and a lot of water, particularly Ireland, Scotland, southwest of England. It's like flooded all over the place.
Really?
Yes, I've been driving yesterday to supermarket, and we had massive ponds literally on the roads.
Yeah.
And, it's like for 10, 12 hours raining non-stop. And then just before the sun is going down, no clouds, nothing. You have 13 degrees for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
But it's too late to do anything, and you don't know what to expect.
Right. That's the way it seems like it always happens, right? Rain. And then all of a sudden the sun comes out just as it's setting.
Yeah.
And then you can, say goodbye to it.
Yeah. Okay. That was it. And yeah, no more. And then you wake up in the morning, and I looked through the window, and it was just horrendous.
It was
just
gloomy
dark,
again.
rainy and gloomy. And I'm like, where are you, son?
Where'd the sun go?
Yeah, it's no spring anymore.
Yeah, that's a drag, man.
Yeah, that's a kind of...
down here, where I'm at here on the coast of Mississippi, of the Gulf Coast, I mean, the coast is just right there, really, really close to us. So you get these, it's kind of almost a tropical flow, and the rain is just torrential. It just downpours. And it's accompanied very often here with thunderstorms. So it's been lightning and thundering here as well today.
Oh, that's a scenery for a good movie.
I'm talking to my wife up in the Intermountain West, right? She's up in Utah in the mountains. It's blue skies and clear and 61 and sunny. And of course, I'm missing all that.
You are
here.
Always hopefully looking, you have nice sight and, the rock, the mountain, that's just brilliant. And now you have just thunderstorm. Oh,
well, hopefully when I get home, it'll still be there. The sun, the blue skies and the sunshine, that always makes me happy.
Nah, I know you are outdoors. That's another thing that I would like to, unpack later on.
Sure.
So you've been cut during the famous interview.
Yeah, right.
Anyways, we started with chatting about silverware, spoons.
Yeah.
And I was wondering when we finished, like, okay, how he did that? Was it like, spooning, or is it like staggering, or what was the method?
Really it wasn't anything special. They have those silverware trays, and they're set up, and which is, so I'm a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, so that's what I ended up being in life. Well, it's all about process and process improvement stuff, and Lean has a lot of that kind of stuff where they have cutout boards and everything in its place, and 5S and those kinds of things. So I didn't realize at 8 years old that, what I was messing with was a 5S thing, become, best practice. But yeah, they have those cutouts, and there's a little plate, and it's all cut out just for your fork and your knife. And I just really got a kick out of that. Oh yeah, it goes right here, and then, so we'd get the dishes out and I'd experiment with ways, would I batch them all up and put them in? Or would I dry them one at a time and put them in, and I actually would even kind of like time myself to see which one.
Did you time yourself, really?
Yeah, I'd kind of like keep track of the time and stuff. And I really thought that was, I just was kind of mesmerized by this whole, everything in its place thing. And I got to admit I'm a little bit OCD in that regard. I'm not bad, but I do like things in their place, and I like things clean and neat and tidy, right? So anyway, that was just part of me when I was young. And flip, when I was a kid, right? And probably you too, Patrick. I mean, it was like, oh, you grew up to be a lawyer or a doctor or a fireman or a policeman, or that's the kind of things that you thought about maybe being. Now, my dad was an air crewman. In the Air Force, and he was always coming home in his flight suit. So from when I was young, I thought, man, I want to be, I want to fly. I want to be a pilot or something, right? I didn't think at all about the fact that maybe, this little affinity I had for keeping the silverware tidy could turn into a job. So, fast forward like years and years later, I ended up so you can tell me whether you were crazy like this too, but when I got married really young, hadn't even finished college, and I didn't even have a job. I mean, we were just wild and crazy, and we just had total faith that it'd all work out, right? So I got married, and I was selling real estate at the time, actually, and it wasn't working out though really well for me. And my grandmother was like, well, I know this lady that works at this company called Thykol. Now, Thykol was the original firm that actually built the space shuttle, the boosters, space shuttle rocket boosters, right? And she goes, and they're hiring. So I went out there and I made an application. I'd never done any of this type of stuff. So, but they hired me, and I went in actually as a quality inspector, specifically doing non-destructive tests. And I did that for a couple of years, and they had a really cool program where that if you, they'd pay for your college, and I had 2 years of college down, and I needed to get the rest of mine done. So I went ahead and enrolled in their program, and I actually went on straight graves for 2 years. and that was tough, right? I had my wife, and I actually had a son by then, and I was straight grades and going to school and working, and yeah, I was grouchy sometimes during the day. I don't know if you've ever done that kind of stuff yourself, Patrick, but man is not meant to stay up all night. Mm-mm. No, that's really not meant to do that. Anyway, I finally finished my college degree, and I graduated, and I was still working at Thical, right, doing the non-destructive test stuff. And they had a couple of openings on the job board for a thing called an industrial engineer. And it looked interesting and fun. And when I'd been working on the line, they had these industrial engineers that would come by and do time studies. And I thought, now that would be fun. I could dig that. It was kind of like looking at time and motion and all these kinds of things. It was very similar to the whole keeping track of stuff in the drawer with the knives and forks and spoons. And so I applied. I had my degree now, right? So I could apply. And they brought me in as an entry-level engineering tech guy, as an industrial engineer. And then, long story short, from there, I became an industrial engineer. And industrial engineering is all about process improvement stuff, right? So I learned Lean and Six Sigma and went on from there. And I actually spent 20 years in the aerospace and defense, working there at Thical, making all kinds of different rockets, tactical rockets and SICBMs and the space shuttle. I was there when the space shuttle actually blew up when that occurred. And that was a sad day. But as part of that, one of the really cool things that I got to do when I was there working on the space shuttle was they actually have what they call a manned flight awareness program. Right. And you can get nominated for that if you're like cool enough. You can draw out, and you get to go actually down to the Cape and meet astronauts. And so, I actually drew out for that. I was nominated by my boss, and I got to go down to Florida, me and my wife, and all expenses paid. And it took us, actually, I didn't get to go to Florida because they had suspended the flights. Normally, the people that drew out for this particular manned flight awareness thing got to go down and actually see a launch. But they weren't launching because it had all been shut down because of the shuttle disaster. So anyway, we got to go to Houston. But still, I get to meet some astronauts and go to dinner. And I got to go to the Mission Control Flight Center place and see all that. So that was really kind of cool. But I learned all this process improvement stuff. And after about 20 years, so I'm going to, I don't know if my gray hair is going to tell it a little bit, but I'm older. After about 20 years of doing that, I was not. And I don't know, this probably happens with a lot of people in their career progressions. You can even speak to this. You don't end up really doing what you thought you were going to do in the first place, right? Things just kind of happen, and you end up in a different place. Anyway, so I was not going where I wanted to there at Thical anymore. So I started looking around, and there was this interesting little consulting opportunity that was in the newspaper back in the old days when you checked the newspaper for job openings, right? And where I live in northern Utah, there's a really big Air Force base. It's called Hill Air Force Base. It was actually the Air Force Base that my father flew out of. And anyway, so they had this consulting engagement there, and they needed an industrial engineer to help them with the machine shop, actually. And I applied and hired on and got hired. So that started my consulting career. And I've been doing consulting in one shape or form now for about another 20 years. So I'm still working, and I love what I do. But long story short, there is that, oh my heck, I ended up actually being able to make a really nice living doing something I never had heard about. That was very close to what I would do with my mom when I was doing the dishes.
I mean, it's remarkable. It looks like what I'm hearing is after doing the dishes, you decided to do something, and then you started to help everyone for the next 30 years or so. And
That's kind of it. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of amazing that one, not skill, but for some peculiar reasons we are revealing some talents. And yes, I was thinking at first that it might be a little bit OCD when you are thinking about how I can just do it in a more specific way. But
Yeah.
engineering and industrialization is about standardization, and you just want to scale it. And you had this skill at the first, and it revealed in a very weird way.
Very weird way. Just presented
extrapolated
itself
from that point.
Yeah. And it's funny, right? I think life ends up being that way in a lot of different degrees. You just one little step and you end up maybe making mismove and flip. All of a sudden you end up doing something really cool. Sometimes it ends up, though, you're doing something really dumb and not cool.
That's experimentation, I would call it.
Yeah.
Just...
But I guess that's part of life too. Then you do a little, and honestly, that's kind of a lean thing. Test and refine, test, refine, test, refine. So when you think about it, Patrick, life really is just a continuous improvement journey.
Yeah, it should
every day we're trying to be, hopefully, a little better human being.
Oh, you touched so many things, and I went through the introduction, and of course I did a little bit of research. You know that, and we know. I'll just say that to whoever is listening, that I had this privilege to work with you, and it sparked very, very, hilarious at some points at time conversations, and we find out that we have a lot of things in common, yet we are coming from different backgrounds, different countries, and we had different hobbies and different starting points with silverware or flights. And I remember when I was reading about you, and you mentioned that you worked from tanks to banks.
Yeah.
Banks, I can take it. Rockets, that's amazing. You blow my mind. But tanks, I'll grab that. What about tanks predominant? Is it like military thing?
Yeah.
All right.
So I went to work originally as a consultant in the Air Force. And it was my privilege to be able to work with a number of different. So, I always wanted to be a pilot, but I didn't ever go down that route. But I ended up actually getting to work with airplanes. So I, in this consulting gig that I went and first went into, the path there actually led me to get very involved in the Department of Defense. And I worked in the Air Force for about 7 years, doing all kinds of different airplanes. And I loved that. I got to work with KC-135s and C-130s and F-16s. And eventually, as part of my consulting gig, I ended up with Deloitte, which is one of the big four. And they had a contract with the F-35, and I got to go down and work at Lockheed Martin in Dallas, Fort Worth, as they were setting up their new F-35 line. I got to work on the F-22 line. So I got to do a lot of cool airplane stuff. And I loved doing that. And my engagement then with the Air Force led to a couple of other consulting firms because I'd gotten a lot of experience under my belt working with the Department of Defense and using Lean Six Sigma methods in their environment, right? So every actual arm of the United States Department of Defense has an industrial portion where all these airframes or anything that they're running, like tanks, for example, tanks or trucks or Humvees in the Army, they have depots, they call them, where they bring these things in after they've been out in the field for a long, long time. They have a particular service life. They have to tear them down and put them back together again. And they do that in what they call a depot maintenance environment. And the airplanes are the same way. Aircraft are the same way. So as part of that, I actually ended up with a consulting firm that had a contract with the Army, working with the M1A Abrams tanks at their depot facility in Alabama. And so I went down there and actually trained and worked with. They had a program in the Army to try to become more efficient and effective using Six Sigma. So I was a master black belt that was coaching and mentoring Six Sigma green and black belt candidates that were working at this tank depot.
No.
And I did that for like 3 months, and that was really fun. They tear all those tanks all the way down, and they put them all back together again, and they drive them all around, and I got to go down and see that and be a part of it. So yeah, that's why I say that I've worked with, in terms of Lean Six Sigma stuff, I've worked with everything from tanks to banks, because I also worked for a consulting firm that did a whole bunch of financial services stuff. And I worked in New York City and Manhattan, on Wall Street, working with some of the big AIG insurance company. I got to work with them. So, some of the bank stuff that I've got to do. So the whole gamut is, I got to actually work with every arm of the Department of Defense, including the United States Coast Guard, which was really, really fun. I enjoyed the heck out of that. My favorite, I'm going to mention this to the audience, to whomever's listening, that my favorite arm of the armed services is the Navy. I love those guys. They've got the coolest looking uniforms, right? These white ones, and during the summer. And the next one below that would be the Marines, because they've got super cool looking uniforms too. But they all get to go on ships and stuff. But one of the coolest gigs I had was working at the North Island Naval Air Station, which is on Coronado Island, just outside of San Diego, California. It's a huge naval installation. They have ships there, and they also have an arm of their the Navy Air Arm, right? The Air Corps. All of a sudden, I can't remember what they call it at the moment. I'll come up with it in a sec. But anyway, Naval Air Station is there, and then they also have a ships where they repair ships, all in the same facility. And when I was there, I got to work with a group that takes have you ever gone like the Top Gun movies, right? Everybody's gone to a Top Gun movie, and they have those cool catapults that launch the F/A-18s off of the aircraft carriers. They actually take those big catapults off of those aircraft carriers and refurbish them in a facility that's on the ground there. And I was working with a team that was doing that, trying to help them actually become more efficient, effective in their process. And the senior chief there, so the Navy is pretty much run by what they call chiefs. And they have the senior chief, anyway, chief, petty officer, the petty officer. So they run the Navy. They really do. They're like the non-commissioned officers in the Navy. And they really depend on them a lot. Anyway, the senior one that was there working on the team that I was on, the USS Ronald Reagan was in port, and that's the aircraft carrier that they had taken the catapult off of. And he goes, one day, so nobody's on the ship hardly at all because it's in port. They're tearing all this stuff off, right? It's all these repair crews are on the ship, so it's not operational or anything. So one day he goes, "Hey, do you want to tour the aircraft carrier?" And I said, "Yeah, that'd be really cool." So he took me on a personal tour from stem to stern for like 2.5, 3 hours on the aircraft carrier, the USS Ronald Reagan. It was so cool. I got to see everything. If you've ever gone to the Top Gun movies and seen those guys doing their thing, I got to go see all that in person. It was a fantastic opportunity. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying here is the job that I ended up just kind of falling into has gotten to, I've been able to go all over the place and do some really cool things and meet some fantastic people and see some fun places.
Do you realize that you ruined like millions of people's dreams by saying, yeah, this Top Gun thing, yeah, I've been there, seen that real time. The Abrams, yes, I've seen Abrams. Yes.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
It's like a lot of young boys, when we grew up, we are like, yeah, I want to just have a gun and
Oh
I want to
yeah.
be a pilot.
Oh yeah.
You were that
Yeah,
close in all those
me.
decisions. Yeah. Brilliant. And,
Yeah.
it is, again, peculiar because you are looking through continuous improvement, how the organization can work, and you can apply that to many industries. And you
Yeah.
decided that, of course, from silverware, and you just use that. And it's peculiar how life is just throwing you left, right, here and there. And you're naming these big companies and big organizations. But I know you are kind of a modest person. I work with you, and I know that you are very cheerful and you have
Well, thank
a lot
you.
of fun. And you could hear that, oh, it was fun. That was cool. So you really enjoy the work, even though it's sometimes tough.
Yeah.
And it does require very systematic approach. And military, come on, that's a serious thing. It's not like, small startup that is creating websites or mobile games. It is something really, really serious. So you need to be a very professional person. And at the same time, you maintain this cheerful character. I dig a little bit deeper about yourself, and I found some people opinions who worked with you and who had some thoughts about, how you act. And I wanted to just bring this up because there were like two who just really, really touched me. The first one, and I'll quote that, was Michael's ability to work with clients from any industry, craft strategic solutions, and manage expectations is top-notch. However, it is his ability to take the reins and execute that makes him truly unique. Do you recall or have an idea who might say that?
No. I don't know.
Many.
Whoever it is, I want to give him a big hug or whatever.
It does say, every industry, and you just named a few from the top of your head. Big names, very responsible, role, and you improved organization, I believe. Now, I know it's traveling a lot because you mentioned Manhattan, you mentioned Coast, California. Now you're in Mississippi. You lived in Utah since you were born. And I think it is kind of a significant impact when you think I'm traveling and I'm consulting. And I'm looking, do you have any anecdotes when you have more than, about the projects that were not that good, or maybe they were very difficult, or maybe it was so easy that you thought that it would be like the best experience ever?
Well, I'll tell you that in consulting, and you know this, Patrick, any consultant knows this, that there's two really big things with the consulting world. One is that you can't go in and just say, here I am, I know everything here, just do it, do this, right? That's not going to play. Nobody wants to be told what to do. So they have to discover it, which is very key. And the biggest challenge in consulting is that very thing, and that is that it's the change management issue of it. People don't want to be told what to do, and they are, honestly, most of the time they're like, go away, and that is a real challenge. And oftentimes, I've run into that, and it's made me bummed out. It's been difficult because you've got these people that really lots of times they don't even want you there. So the really cool thing is in consulting is if you end up with a client that just really does want you there, it makes you feel great, and you really are able to help. That's a great feeling, and I look for that. But to tell you the truth, it happens maybe only 20% of the time. So 80% of the time, you're just pretty much getting told, well, that was nice, go away, and you do. You just have to go find someone else that maybe you can try to work with. So the client I'm with now is golden. Oh. They just want this. They need it. There's a burning platform there. They've got to have it, or they're not going to be able to really. They actually lost their low cost position in the market. So they were really looking for some help, and it's a transformation guy, as a operational excellence person. That's just exactly what we're there for. That's where we can help. So this particular client here, it's just been fantastic, so fun. I look forward to coming here and working because they just eat everything up that I've got, and I've been able. And here's the thing. That you can actually feel like that you're helping, you're making a difference. Because I've actually been able to get them to go from where they were, which wasn't very functional, honestly, to a new, better place that's much more functional. And that just really is very, very gratifying, honestly.
I can imagine. Now, you mentioned very important thing that majority of the time our customers don't want us.
Whoever was that said all those beautiful things about me, it makes me feel great. But it also makes me actually feel a little bit like, oh, wow, I actually pulled it off, because those are the things that I really try to come to the table with when I'm working with a customer. I try to put myself in their shoes. I remember when I was a young guy on the line and consultants came by and I was like, oh, go away. Who are you? Right. And I remember that feeling. And, I'm working with people that are factory floor workers. Right. And so I remember how I felt when I was them, and I want to be able to be happy, and I want to be able to, bring an energy to the situation, so that they can, because it's person to person, right? And I really like to be able to. I strive. I'll tell you what, Patrick. I really work on it. And I strive trying to be personable in that regard, and positive and upbeat. And the other side of that is that, because of the fact that I've done this so long and I know that it really can work, I'm like, whatever, I'm converted. I know this can help. I know what it is that the people like you and I bring to clients really will help. And it will really make their lives better, right? Because they won't have to come to work frustrated they can't get anything done because everything's all just so messed up. Because that's part of what we do, right? We streamline and we make things more efficient. And we have methods that we bring to the table to make that happen. But delivery is key, right? And you have to listen. And like I said, you don't just come in and say, well, you're stupid. Do it this way. I know better than you, and I'll just tell you. And you know what? There's consultants that do that. There's consultants that just come in and say, I'm honking smart and just do what I say. That's not going to play. So change management is a super big thing. And so being nice and personable and listening is really, really important, and trying to put yourself in their position and actually help, like, really, person to person. I really can help you. I really do want to help.
So I won't let you stay modest or humble anymore. I have one more quote, and that is about the leadership. Because it starts with leadership. You are showing that it can work. You believe in that. That's why people are following you, because you have proof, and they believe, yeah, this guy is a guy who knows a few things. He can help me. Now, one person who worked with you shared some thoughts about you, and let me bring it. Careful. His leadership style will allow you to empower yourself, and he will put full confidence in your capability and let you take the lead. Although he is a thought leader in his area of operational excellence, he will never refuse to listen to your point of view and in a process improve each other's learning. So that says a lot about your personality.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just, I'm going to cry here. This is, I'm just humbled that someone would say that about me. And honestly, that's like the best compliment ever.
But you said that from your point of view, and this one person noticed that and just put this and articulated in that way. But it's exactly, you can see now that what you are doing works, and what sort of impact it does have to clientele and people who are co-working as well. So I know, what is the root of this? Is it your personality, or is it your integrity, honesty, or is it something that there was a pivotal moment in your life that changed the way you act and the way you think?
Yeah, man, that's a really good question. I've just always been a happy person. And even a bit of a goof off. Yeah, fun-loving guy. You've probably seen this with me, Patrick.
Yeah.
I like to goof off, and and I'll even say things that a lot of people wouldn't say. But I think I've just always been kind of a positive individual. And I've got to honestly say too that I'm a Christian, and I think that's been a great foundation for me too, to have that kind of a mindset and viewpoint about things, trying to be kind and be good, try to be a good person. That was brought up to me from when I was just little, from my parents. And so I think that was probably a factor as well. But moreover, probably just the fact that I just am a happy guy naturally, and I like people. I like being around people, and I like talking to them, interacting with them. But I learned really early on. I'll tell you what, that's interesting. You brought it up. It just came to mind. I had a 4th, 5th grade teacher, and it was a gal. I don't remember her name for the life of me, but she had us write a paper that was supposed to be about us. It's supposed to be about us. It was some kind of paper about me at home or whatever. And I wrote this paper, and I thought, oh my heck, this is a really great paper. I thought I did a good job. And she came back and she wrote in red on the paper, Mike, you said I too much. People don't like it when you just say I all the time. And that has stuck with me ever since that moment, that it's got to be more about just me. And I guess, honestly, to tell you the truth, I've kind of that was a bit of a switch for me, where I started to think, oh, okay, well, maybe I really need to listen to people more and not just be about me all the time.
Being curious with inquisitive mindset, that's a big thing. But at the same time, you just brought up again that naturally and organically for you, you had this cycle of feedback, and you just adjusted your behavior the way you are. So I think that you've been born with lean approach, just like that.
I was born with lean. That's true. It's in my innards. Now, so whoever wrote these fantastic things about me, I wish they would have been around when I needed to create my last resume, so I could have put all that down on there.
I can guide you where I found this, and they were working with you for some years, and they were saying, great things. Now, that is very much connected, because I read, recently, I must admit, I missed so many books that I should read in order, and I read them in different order possibly, and by the look of that, I should read that years ago. It was Jim Collins about From Good to Great, and he was saying, why some organizations are good and why some organizations are great. What's the reason behind? And one of the reasons was the leadership. And they were saying that for some reason, these organizations does have leaders who are humble, who when during the situation when organization is achieving something, they'll never say, oh, I did that. Because they are being told to level 5, it will be either we or I wouldn't be able to do it without you people. I'm just here and I have some ideas, but you are the one who put this off. And I think this connection with humans and the ethical aspect, the values that you are living for, shows that you are that kind of a leader. And, I guess we can learn a lot, and we can just unpack this approach, even the missionary later. But is it as well that this traveling And I'll just share with listeners that you were born in Utah and you lived there for whole life, although you traveled a lot and you spent like 2 years in Germany.
Yeah.
Does Germany influence your approach to problem solving and efficiency?
Yeah, my life in Germany definitely did influence that. So I was there when I was young, underway as a missionary for the Latter-day Saint Church, and I had to learn language. And from the very beginning, what they do is they submerge you totally, and it's called the Live Your Language program. So you walk in the door, you're speaking English, and then they say, from now on, you can't say anything unless it's in German. So we just, we're like doing our best to try to say, Ich habe Hunger, or whatever, I'm hungry. So I think that really was something that helped me understand the concept of like really immersing. That you've got to get into it, to make it happen. You can't just be like half. So you get to go all the way there. And so too, as a young man, only 19 years old, and I'm, in Germany in a foreign language speaking a foreign land speaking a foreign language, you have to kind of figure out how to make it, be grown up. You have to be grown up.
A lot of effort that you need to put, and just like
mentioned. Yeah, so that was very helpful for me. Yes, definitely, especially with my leadership thing, any kind of maybe perhaps leadership qualities that I have, and I was able to develop this there, and the whole concept of servant leadership or empathetic leadership style, because I was only in country 6 months, and they made me a group leader, and I had to, figure out how to, what was my style going to be? I had to figure that out like right away. And I wanted to be someone that I really had always felt like I want to be the kind of leader that I would want to have. Right. And nobody wants to have a leader or somebody that's in charge that thinks he's stinking honking cool. They want, nobody really wants that as a leader. They want someone that they can relate to and someone they can look up to and respect, but just because of how they are. And I think one of the biggest parts of that is just simple kindness, trying to be empathetic, understanding, listening. Now, and that's not easy to do because we as people, we automatically, will get upset or not upset, but definitely like more frustrated, right? And you can let your temper get away with you. And I am not a naturally patient person. I have to work on that.
I'm not patient at all.
My hat's off to those that are naturally patient. It's not me, and I have to work on that. But I definitely, my time in Germany helped form that leadership approach, if you will. Definitely did. Yeah.
You mentioned, you want to be a leader that you would like to have a leader like.
Yeah.
I remember when my daughters were arguing, and the only advice I could give them, I said to the older one, try to be a sister like the sister you would like to have.
Yeah.
So it is kind of a similar thing, and that stopped her to do some things and to be a little bit empathetic maybe.
Kindness prevails. That's the best way to be. And this too, Patrick, we talked about this when you and I were working together with some of the clients that we had, and that servant leadership is like the thing now, right? And there's a big movement out there to try to get that to happen. And it's interesting too, because a lot of people talk that talk and they don't walk it. And you know what? That goes back to the fact that we as humans are naturally selfish. Right. And you have to work on overcoming that and being more selfless. That's not a natural. I mean, I guess there are some people that are naturally selfless, but most of us are just naturally self-centered. And so I had that inside of me based on my faith from when I was young. And I just always wanted to develop that. And I let that come out in my leadership style when I was working with people. I'll tell you another interesting turning point for me, where it kind of was an aha moment. And that was right after I'd gotten done working at Cycall, and I had gone into consulting, and I was leading a team at that point in time, a consulting team at Hill Aerospace. And we had put together this symposium. Out of Utah State University, there's a group called the Shingo group, and they have a thing called the Shingo Prize, based on Shigeta Shingo, which he was a lean practitioner from way back. That anyway, then they have these symposiums. Shingo group gives the prize out to people that they think are really emulate the lean approach. They wanted to get it going in the DoD, and they hadn't really done so up to that point in time. So I approached some of those guys up at the Shingo Prize, and we put together, myself and him, we put together this symposium for Hill Aerospace, and it was actually the very first time that Shingo had done anything with the DoD. So I'm kind of proud of that. But in any case, we had this symposium, and they had a bunch of speakers, and one of the speakers was the guy that was running Hill Air Force Base at that time. Was a 2-star Air Force general, and I can't for the life of me remember his name, but he spoke, and we had a big meeting room full of people, right, up at Utah State University, which is, by the way, a gorgeous campus up in the middle of the Wasatch Mountains, just in the pines, and it's just beautiful. You got to get there, man. You got to come over here. So, not to Mississippi, but to Utah sometimes, so we can hang out. This 2-star gave his talk, and then he opened it up to questions and answers. And one of the questions was, well, when was it that you really felt like that you were starting to really take off in your career? And he said something that I've always remembered, and that is this: it was when I got over myself.
Right.
Now I had to think about that for a minute. Then I realized what he was talking about was he started to become a servant leader. Was really what he was meaning, right? He got over himself and realized it was about, other people than him. And that effect, that I've always kept that in the back of my mind too, that idea, because I think it's really very, very effective.
And I think that's very deep, and thanks for sharing it. There's a lot in that. Because you're right. If we are like centric, we are doing everything in that for ourselves, for our, you name it, because we are hungry, because we are, because of the vanity or whatever is there, or sometimes just because we want to feel better. But when you overcome that, you are doing something for a greater good. You are doing it for someone else. You are revealing your talents, and then everyone can benefit from that. And then it comes back twice. But if you just take everything to yourself, there's only that much you can just get. And I think it's just constraining your growth at the end. I'm just speculating and trying to understand, but really, really great thought.
Well, I wish that, honestly, Patrick, I wish that, and you've seen this out in the world, why aren't leaders more like this? Because we run into this all the time. Well, people in really high up positions, and they're just, it's all about me, right? And they're just shut up and do what I say. And how does that even happen? I don't even get how they get to those positions with that kind of a mindset.
Isn't it something that they are being scared because they don't want to be exposed, that they don't have something, that they're not doing it for better, they're just doing it for themselves. Greed, you name it. But it looks like they are limiting themselves. They don't believe in themselves. They are so full of fear, uncertainty, anxiety, and then the only way to control the situation and to feel less scared is if we control other people and tell them what to do. Then I feel safe. It's just some connection in that. You could see this behavior that they are very defensive. They are scared that they'll lose something.
You hit an eternal truth right there, in my opinion. Yeah. That really is. They're motivated by fear, not faith or confidence or trust. But like you say, I may lose control. Somewhere, so they think that their idea of really being a good leader is...
Start with thinking, I believe, what the leadership really means. And it is maybe inspiring, not managing, your expectations only.
Oh, heck yes. Right? Yes, inspiring. That's really what leadership. When you think about the super great leaders that of the world, isn't that what they were?
Mm,
Inspiring.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, they had this vision, and somehow the people were connected with them. And the most ridiculous example of leadership, when I was trying to explain this to my children, was the very old movie. I think it was 60s, Sindbad, when they were trying to steal something. Don't remember the title and the plot really, really much. But there was this scene when he was with his comrade, and they were just trying to reach the top of the hill, and they were just moving along the wall, very dangerous. And he was like keeping everyone tight and go on, helping them, supporting. I was like, okay, that's kind of a leadership, showing the path, the better path, and securing it. But then once they reached the peak of the hill, and these people started to smash this eggs, and he didn't judge them. He knew that we need to go very, very quickly, and there is a danger because of this monster trying to
Yeah.
secure the eggs, but he didn't judge. What he did, he said, my people are hungry. I need to help them. And I was like, that's remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
You know that there's a danger, but there is a rationale why these people are trying to get these eggs. And he didn't judge at first, but just thinking, well, why? This question of why, 5 whys and so forth from Lynn. But it is this kind of leadership that I have in my mind. It's like, yeah, I'll just support you, and I'm seeing things that maybe you are not seeing. And that's my role in that. I'm glad that you gave our listeners some of the points about, where to start. Start thinking about others, not yourself. And then when you bring the value to others, they'll just see some benefits from that, and they'll come back and give you insights. That was good. Do you have anything else?
You've hit a really important point right there, Patrick. And that is that every time that I've seen a group that I've been working with actually take off is when they saw the value. They discovered the value. They tried it out. I was working with the EPA here in the United States once. We were deploying lean throughout the EPA all over America, all the organizations, all the branches. And we were working with this one group in one of the divisions and the EPA has a ton of lawyers, you can imagine, right? And they had this group of lawyers, and we had set them all up so that they would use these lean practices, right? Because they had all these processes and all these cases and everything that just were never getting done. No, they were getting no throughput, nothing done. So we'd set them up, give them some visibility using lean, and set up some performance boards, and so they started testing them. And the lead lawyer guy came in one day in Washington D.C. That's another thing. I've gotten to go to Washington D.C. a lot. That's so fun. I just love going there, working. Fun, especially in the spring. It's so beautiful when the cherry blossoms are out and all that. Oh man, it's just a gorgeous place to go. Anyway, side note. So he comes into his office here in Washington, D.C. once, and he had this performance board up that was right by his cube. It had all these, they were keeping track of these things that they were working on. They even had some cost associated with. And he came in one morning, and this is what he said. I came in one morning and I looked at that board and I saw all this stuff moving across it. And he says, boom, the light just turned on in my head. This works. He could see it. It was happening. There was throughput. There was flow. And he was like, oh my heck, this lean crap works. Right? Boom. It just lit up in his head because he had tested it and it was there visual for him to see. And from that point on, he was like our biggest advocate. He was running around telling everybody, pull your head out, do this, get going, So that what you mentioned that's that thing, that key there, that you bring it to them, and then when the light turns on and they can, like you just mentioned, and someone sees the value, boom, now they're like, whatever, they're a convert. Well, the interesting point is, though, in the end, everybody wants the results.
I think that we gave a lot about how to do things better way. I'd like to move to beyond the usual. I remember when we were talking about this podcast, and it was like unusual, usuals, unusuals. And I think that, we have this professional life, and you have really great career, and I know that you will do very, very well. But what is very interesting, and I think that, I don't know which part is more interesting, is this beyond usual. And I would like to focus on unusual part, when something that is so normal, organic for yourself might be unusual for our listeners. And some of this stuff, I know it is not. Michael, you lived in Utah your whole life, apart Germany. You married, you have 3 grown children. You are proud grandfather of 7 grandchildren, 2 step grandchildren. That's a big family, and you are a family guy. But when I read that you like shooting, I was thinking, but not killing, but just shooting. I was like, is it because there are too many and you need to react and you need to just some sort of steam up,
blow some steam?
And this military background, I think that that tracks.
No, I will say, and I don't wish to be boastful or anything, but I'm quite an unusual fellow, actually, because I'm a real man's man. I mean, I want to be out in the rough. I want to shoot guns. I want to ride motorcycles. I want fast cars. But I enjoy the ballet. I don't.
That's even better. Like in the evenings, are you dancing?
I would happily go to the ballet with my wife or to the symphony. Enjoy that. When we were younger, we haven't done this recently, but my wife and I used to always take our kids to the Nutcracker every Christmas, to the ballet.
Brilliant.
So, and I love music. I used to play the saxophone and the piano. I haven't really fiddled with that much lately, but I want to try to maybe do it again. Now I'm kind of semi-retired, and I might have a little more time to do those kinds of things. I love being able to hit the target. So I enjoy shooting firearms. And I know, there may be people out there, firearms are evil. That's a different discussion for a different day. But the bottom line is okay, I was raised in the Wild West. John Wayne was what I was weaned on, riding off on his horse with a 6-gun. And when I was a kid, I wanted to be a cowboy. And yes, I actually used to wear I had these toys. I had 2 6-guns. It was a double rig that I would wear to bed. I told my mom I had to wear them to bed with me, right? And I had cowboy pajamas, and I always wanted to grow up to be a cowboy. In the West, there's a culture thing. Everybody has a gun. I used to hunt, but I kind of lost my taste for that. And I do not want to kill things. I just want to be able to hit the target, and it's kind of fun. It's a kick to be able to hit the target. And oh, by the way, it is kind of a kick too to listen to the thing go bang.
When I was in primary school, we had this shooting range, and we've been, shooting. I was quite good compared to my colleagues.
Right on, man.
Yeah, and it was like, long gun, long shot.
Yeah.
And that was for concentration, so you had like 10 shots, and it doesn't matter in which direction it went. It's just when the second shot you are making, it needs to be as close as possible to the previous one, so steady hand. And I enjoyed that because it is, you're achieving something. You are focusing, you are, trying to do things, and you need to consider wind and, whatever is there, not pro by all means. But I haven't done it when I was 8.
We start young in the Wild West, man. I had a BB gun when I was 8 years old that I just would go shoot things with. I was lucky enough to live in an area where I could just go down into this wooded area and shoot whatever cans. And when I was 8 years old, my dad taught me how to shoot a .22. My grandfather was a sheep herder. I grew up on the range. You have to have a firearm out there. You're in trouble if you don't. And a knife. You got to have a knife. You won't survive. Yeah, when I was 12, I had a paper route. The very first thing I bought with the money that I earned was a shotgun. It taught me some good stuff because back then, a 12-year-old who had passed hunter's safety could buy a firearm, a long gun. I didn't have the $50 that I needed to buy it. So my dad took me down to the local bank, and he co-signed with me on a $50 loan with the banker. And I had a book that I kept track of my payments. And then I did my paper route, and they lent me the money. I went and bought the shotgun, and then I did my paper route, and I paid the $5 a month off of my paper route for the 10 plus months to pay the bank back. So I kind of, I learned some good life skills just by getting a gun.
Getting a gun. Buying a gun gave you the skill of responsibility.
That's right.
So, guns.
Yeah.
Cars.
Yes.
That's much closer to myself. I think of course, you are engineer by heart, and you like the machinery. And I believe that, you had dreams like everyone. I want you to tell me about how it started with Mustang that you have.
I've always liked cars too. So my buddy and I, we collected Matchbox cars, and it was the 60s, and muscle cars were the thing. My neighbor next to me, he had a Corvette Stingray. I don't know why he left this beautiful car sitting out in his driveway all the time, but he did. And I'd go over and just drool over it, and just look at it. And from that moment on, I knew someday in my life I had to have a Corvette. So when I was young, when I was 16 and got my driver's license, and two, right? You just prayed that you're going to make it to 16 so you could get your driver's license to drive a car, right? That was the biggest thing in life. I was actually working at a motorcycle store in the summers. I went down and got a loan and bought a motorcycle. I had a motorcycle when I was 16. I bought it. And my dad had a red 65 Mustang that he would let me drive. To this day, I don't know why he let me go ahead and drive it, but I would drive it all over the place all the time. And I'd get it all cleaned up and take it to go get my dates, From that point on, I was always kind of famous for having what they called the Stang. You bring in the Stang this time? Fast forward, I get married. We only had one car. And my wife, we had this new little boy. And she was like, wow, I was out running around selling real estate. And my wife was like, I need a car. And one of the guys that I was working with on selling his home had a 68 Mustang, and he sold it to me for $2,000. I ended up in 1978 with a 68 Mustang, and I still have that in my garage today. So I just kept it. And about 10 years ago, I had it frame up restored. I got to the point where I could afford to do some of that stuff. Had it frame up restored. And then right after I got the Mustang restored, this opportunity came up for me to buy a Corvette Stingray convertible. The car that I'd wanted my whole life. And so I went ahead and got that. And I've had it now since then. I've had it 10 years too. But anyway, I am the proud and blessed owner of two really nice, cool muscle cars. Got a Corvette Stingray convertible, 07, and a 1968 fully restored Mustang.
So we covered the bikes, the cars, shooting. Now,
yeah.
When you say it like that, it thinks like, oh, he can be a great outlaw, like the bandit or the person that is just using all these three things and being impatient and very precise in shooting and in anything he does, and it will be like very masculine figure. And I know that you are teaching at church and you are Christian, and I'm thinking, and how does that influence on day-to-day basis? How do you see the world?
Well, I think that, some people may look at me or a person like me and think that he likes firearms and he wants to shoot guns, and that makes me some kind of crazy evil person or something. Or that because I like motorcycles, go riding motorcycles up in the mountains, or that I like fast cars, that makes me some kind of reckless individual, or even just a cocky old man, or maybe even midlife crisis guy or whatever. But the way I look at life is that you are not defined by those things that you have an affinity for. You have an affinity for them. They're fun. You find them enjoyable, right? And it's okay. It doesn't mean that you're evil or that you're reckless or that you're crazy or that you're a womanizer, or whatever, because you like all these kind of guy things. I think that all goes back to, what's down deep inside of you. And for me, right, it's my Christian faith that drives really my actions. But just because I'm a Sunday school teacher, doesn't mean I can't have a good time putting my top down on my Corvette and going to the canyon on a summer day and feel like I'm 20 again, and because it is fun and it's fun for anybody that wants to do it, to tell you the truth. And so I guess that's the way I kind of look at it. Now, I feel like that I'm kind of I'm definitely a conservative person in the way that I look at, political or whatever. But I'm also a common sense individual. So I just feel like that I'm really, I think that I personally am driven by what I would call common sense. And that things that are just that I enjoy are don't define me per se as I'm a stereotypical this guy. Like I said, I mean, I'm a different kind of male. I don't know a lot of guys that are okay with going to the ballet. I really enjoy them. It's beautiful, and or to the orchestra or any other of a number of the fine arts. I love going to art galleries and looking at the beauty of such places. And the stereotypical male that like me that maybe likes muscle cars and guns and fishing and hunting, he's got a beard and a ball cap and sunglasses and he's just always sitting home watching TV or watching football all the weekend long. And that is not me.
There is a reason why you're having car. You always love that, and it is transparent. There is a reason why you like shooting, and you're admitting why you're enjoying it. You don't feel any guilt. But there are so many people in the world who are doing things just to become someone. So they buy a car, which others can admire, to be noticed.
Yeah.
And from your life, we could learn that it is not about buying it to show. It's not buying it to define. It is finding things that will just give you a little bit of joy. And sometimes you need to wait for these things. And sometimes maybe they will never be available. Yes. And it is not for purpose of having it, but to serve the joy of life.
Yeah, just kind of enjoy. You're right.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm seeing from your personality. And when I mentioned that some things are not achievable yet, let's agree on that because we never know. But so far, it's like very distant. You mentioned in your bios that Californians are buying land nearby, and if you would be a billionaire, you'll just get some land and build some kind of a retreat. I wonder what is happening. Is it just like they want the same joy that you have?
Wow, that's very perceptive, actually, Patrick. Utah has become one of the matter of fact. It just was rated recently. U.S. News and World Report rated it the #1 state in the union. Well run and no crime and desirable place to be. Now that kind of bums me out because we've got so many people moving in here now that I just don't have. There's no place to go anymore. All the green space has been eaten up by houses and condos and such, and it concerns me because of the fact that it's a high desert area, and so water is actually very scarce, right? But that being said, yes, a lot of people want to come to Utah because it's desirable. It's quiet. It's safe. It's common sense. There's common sense going on in Utah. And, whether people want to recognize that or not, it is a desirable state. of being, right? So that, where you can feel comfortable and safe and befriended and friendly, and clean and nice and etc. All around you. That's a desirable state. Um, and I don't want to. I just want to make a quick little observation here. I went to Paris some years ago, and I'd been to Paris before in the 70s. I found it was just a beautiful place. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I went there in the late 90s and found that there was graffiti on every wall, and nobody in Paris would smile at me or even be kind to me at all because I was an American. And I thought to myself, what's happening? Why are people painting stuff all over the place? And I guess somebody might like to make a point that, well, it's art or what. I personally don't think it's art. It's graffiti. And so that was very disappointing, discouraging to me to go to this place I'd been to before that I thought was beautiful and wonderful, and go again and see that nobody was nice, nobody was kind, nobody was friendly, and there was just trash paint on every wall everywhere, right? And so I think that the people, honestly, if they're really honest from themselves, they want a nice, kind, friendly place where common sense, if you will, prevails. And therefore, there's a ton of people coming to Utah. That's my personal theory about it, right? Well, and okay, it's in the mountains. It's beautiful. It's got all this alpine, beautiful scenery. And yes, I mean, there's a whole bunch of billionaires that came in and bought the whole top of the mountain up where we used to go skiing. And they're building these unbelievable giant homes and a helipad stuff, right? So yeah, I said that in my bio because it was a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek thing about all these guys taking over my beautiful Utah. And I can't afford it up there anymore in the valley where all these guys have bought all this up because they've just created the inflationary price for real estate that a normal person can't afford it anymore.
Yeah, and they are not living there. I presume that they're just coming from time to time with their helicopters.
Oh, that's exactly what they do. They just come in usually when it's skiing time or in the summer, to hang out, and then they go back to. A ton of them are like, Silicon Valley billionaires and stuff.
And the risk is that everyone will try to follow, and then it will be overcrowded, and it will become Paris with graffitis on the wall.
It's already happened. It's already happened in my area, right? Okay, so 20 years ago, even you could leave your cars in your keys in your car, and you didn't have to worry about it. Not now. No. And 20 years ago, where I live in the North Ogden area, no one had ever heard of a murder. It was not existent. There were 2 last year, 2 or 3. So all that, and they're just all coming. And where I live in Utah, on the Wasatch Front, they call it, there's just a couple of main thoroughfare freeways on a corridor, a very narrow corridor there between the mountains and the Great Salt Lake. Well, it's become little LA. You can't drive anywhere without having a traffic jam anymore. So, no, you're right, Patrick. It has now become overcrowded and not as desirable, honestly, because it's not as quiet and it's not as affordable and it's not as green.
I was born in a big city, and it's like 30% bigger than Manchester here in the UK. And when we moved here, we lived in the south of Manchester for years. And then we moved to this very rural, very small village. And we loved that because you're not a unit. Although there were just like only retired people. So you could see only young kids. Yeah, they're ours. But because it was so quiet and because it was so safe and so small, it started to be fashionable. Through our conversation, you struck me as always, enthusiasm, friendliness, dedication to this continuous improvement and everything. And, you transitioned from your dreams, although in a very strange way. Oh, I think strange. No, I think that when you put everything on a timeline so far, the silverware and all the military things, it does have connection, very strong connection. It looks like it meant to be that way. And you believed, and your faith helped you to be focused in that and see only good things. But not everyone have so much luck, maybe, or maybe not everyone is so welcoming of changes, and sometimes they're stuck and in their career, in their life. And I believe that optimism helps a lot to see always the bright side of the day and so forth. But this passion of your life and really diverse array of interests you cultivated through all these years pushed me towards maybe you creating an advice for our listeners and whoever might be looking for inspiration, how you can just find your way, how it is to explore with this belief that you will find the right path if you're stuck and if you cannot make your dreams come true. Is there any wisdom or advice that will help them?
Well, all of us get discouraged. Even though I have had a beautiful life, I've had a lot of crap happen, right? And things I've had to overcome. I'm very blessed. There's been many times of discouragement, and where like you were talking about, I felt personally like, oh my heck, why am I even trying? But if I were to give anyone any advice at all, it would be to just remember that this too shall pass, and that I just believe. And believe. I mean, I think keep the faith. Just hang in there, because eventually the sun will come up again, and it really will. I'm naturally a happy person, but I have to work on it too. I have to stay focused, right? That I won't let the negative take me down, or that I don't allow the adversity to take me down. So, because love really is the answer. Hate and finding fault and meanness and all those kinds of things are just negative energy. It's just negative energy, and you don't want to be a part of it. You just and so work hard to not let it be. But here's the bottom line, and I mentioned this before: life is a continuous improvement journey.
It is. It is. If you take it like that, and you are living proof of this, it means that, okay, if something's not working, just try to figure out what to fix. I know it's easy to say, but we can just stop in our life just for a moment. You need to just stop and try to figure out, why is this thing happening? Einstein mentioned, if you are trying to achieve some different results, but you are continuously doing same thing over and over again, nothing will change. And
you may want to try something different, right?
Yeah, just put some variation.
But you hit a good point there, really a life lesson, Patrick, and that is, why is this thing happening? Or, in other words, what can I learn from this?
That's even better. What does that do? Then it is not a situation that happened to you, but it's a lesson that you need to learn.
Right.
Oh, that's brilliant. But the second part of this wisdom that I would like others to receive, it looks like you figured out everything, and you have like a very serious harmony, and yet you have so great personal passions. You haven't lost any of that, and even though you are thinking, oh, maybe I'll look back into piano and so forth, how? Teach me. One would say.
One of the things that I always go back to is love is the answer. So you've got to just let love prevail, as opposed to any other emotion. It's much more powerful than anything else. Love for the other people, love for what you're doing, love for yourself, right? And get rid of the negative energy. Just get rid of it. Don't let it in. Don't let it in. Now, this is something like it's a continuous improvement journey that you have to work on all the time. But after a while, now for me, I'm lucky because I was naturally kind of born a happy guy. I've been naive in my life
Mm.
about things, and I've learned lessons in that regard. My whole life's purpose and goal is just to be happy. I would just want to be happy, right? And it doesn't come from my career. It does not come from my job. It does not come from my car or my gun or being able to do any of that fun stuff. That's a kick, and I enjoy those things, and they're fun to do in life. But the happiness that I have and this positive mindset, if you will, comes from the things that they come from within. I don't know. For a lot of people, there's different ways for them to go and find that. For me, religion's a big part of it, right? But I think the bottom line is, when I get up in the morning, I choose to be happy. I choose to want to let love drive me.
Yeah, it's a choice. It is a choice. And I think that it is entirely up to you what you choose to do, but you deal
Yeah.
with the consequences of that. And if you
Yeah.
are choosing, I want to be a better person today than I was yesterday, and I choose this day to be a good day because I'll do whatever it takes to make it a good day. And then taking lesson from you, it's not for me, it's beyond me. It means that you are looking for triggers that will spark this happiness and make it bigger, isn't it?
Yes, indeed, for sure. And I think part of this is too. I've been lucky in my career. I'm not a doctor or whatever. Thank goodness, I could never do that. But I do help people, right? And that actually has been something that I would not want anyone anywhere to believe that you are your job. Your job does not define you. You work to live. You don't live to work. And everybody, I don't know, Patrick, you probably have a view on this too as well, but everybody I've known that has lived to work has not been really happy. I'll say another thing too. If you're in a job that you hate, see if you can't figure out something else to do. There's the sky's the limit. Honestly, don't let yourself be limited. That's been my experience too. That if you go after something, if you want something, you want to try something, and give it a shot. Go after it.
Mike, final question.
Sure.
Shoot. Me shooting. Look, it'll be intellectual shoot. If there is any book or quote or movie or song that you think that it's keeping you company and you are coming back to it, and you can say to our listeners, and even to myself, of course, that take it, it's good, it will help you, what it would be?
Well, okay, so now you didn't prep me for this one.
No, I didn't.
So, I'm going to just answer you truthfully and honestly, and you can let this go to your viewers or not.
I appreciate it.
But for me personally, it goes back to religion, and it's the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon for me gives me everything I need to be able to have a happy life.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And I go to it daily for help. And I don't know if not everybody's going to know what the Book of Mormon is, but it's pretty much for us as LDS people, it's a canon of Scripture, and we look at it as being a complementary set of canonized Scripture to the New Testament, and they both testify of the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, that book is the one that I have with me all the time, and it gives me strength. Now, if you don't want to go down the religious path, and you want to talk about some other things that maybe a guy might. My favorite movie of all time is Dr. Zhivago.
Oh, right.
The bottom line is, it really is a story. First of all, it's a love story. I'm a hopeless romantic, right? So love stories are just always going to get me going. But it's a story really about a guy that that no matter what, and this guy has it's war, right? And he has some terrible things happen to him, but he's always happy. He's always got a smile. He looks at everything around him. He observes the world and the beauty of it, even when he's in a prisoner of war train going down and so the movie brings that out, in my opinion, and it always had impressed me. The whole romantic part too, because he has like these two beautiful girls that are, loving. But then too, the other side of it is he perseveres in spite of just unbelievable adversity and always stays happy.
Oh. It's like you're feeling that you are this person from time to time.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Really, really good. And I hope that, if somebody didn't watch it, you need to then. And if you have this optimism and that perseverance is a key, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
It was blast, as I'll quote you this time. It was a blast. Really enjoyed, really insightful. Thank you for sharing such a really great stories and wisdom. And I think, it gives a lot of perspective. And I truly believe that, yes, we are alike in certain aspects. We can learn from each other. And I really, really can say that I learned a lot from you when we were working together. And I hope we can just do it even more.
We're just going to.
Fantastic.
I think we're kindred spirits, Patrick. And I think that we ought to continue always hanging out.